I like to mix things up a little bit. So this time I'm going to show the thermal imaging camera where blue is colder than red and yellow by about 5 degrees or so. And you'll see that all the mould and damp lines up with the cold zones. Most properties are going to have some degree of heat loss, but in this particular property, it was a 1950s, 60s style, and they used a lot of metal support for lintels and window surround, and this creates heat loss. Now, heat loss doesn't matter if there is good ventilation, but in this particular property there's no bathroom ventilation, no kitchen ventilation, and inadequate dehumidification.
So there's a walkway above, and that's creating heat loss in the corner, so that's why you're getting high relative humidity there. It's caused by the heat loss, made worse by the vapour. Well, no, put it the other way around. It's the vapour made worse by the heat loss. You can see it in the kitchen. The kitchen is probably kept a bit warmer, which is why it's less obvious. Heat loss down there, and it traps behind the curtain and behind the table to some degree. The interesting thing is seeing how passive vents can cause mould.
You know, it's like
Right?
every time it's on the way where the windows are, so
That's because you get the heat loss there.
yeah.
You can see the condensation dribble marks here.
Yes.
I mean, it's mainly damp. Sorry, it's mainly mould rather than damp
Yeah.
itself.
Maybe hold on for you.
I can tell the primary cause
Yeah.
already
Because you have experience.
from experience. And all the way around here, it's all in the side. So I'll show you the
Yeah.
heat loss on the thermal imaging camera. This one. Especially behind the wallpaper because it traps the humidity against the cold surface. Behind curtains it's especially strong. So passive vents are causing mould, but this dehumidifier, I mean, it's better to have a dehumidifier than nothing, but it's just too small. It doesn't even show capacity. So you want to have one that has a theoretical capacity of 30, well, at least 20 litres per day, probably 30 litres per day in this environment.
So there's dampness at the base of the wall, which is not surprising as gravity draws condensation down a wall. The neighbour has had damp proofing treatment, and I spoke to them and they confirmed that they also have a condensation issue. So my advice is to treat the condensation first and let the wall dry out and then see if you've got any dampness. It's highly unlikely. If you manage to keep the dew point to the external temperature, then you won't have a condensation and mold problem going forward.
So just to say, there's a lot of misunderstanding about mould and its causing allergies. You'll get it in the same environment as dust mites. And since you've got a carpet on the floor, what I recommend is that now that I've shown you where the cold patches are, move the furniture around and vacuum clean while you've got high humidity. While you've got high humidity, you've got a risk of dust mites.
Oh,
and dust mites can cause and dust mites can cause allergic response. So in that same environment. So I would so 3 things to do. Vacuum clean around the cold areas of the floor. Turn the bedclothes down and ideally turn them over. during the day, and likewise the pillows. And then wash sheets, as you probably would do anyway, wash sheets weekly.
Yeah.
But when you're washing the sheets, also turn the mattress.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. And then we will look at doing these.
And the mould is a
Yeah.
separate thing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I
it, but
know.
it,
Yeah.
but it, it's
In the
like
meantime.
it's like the
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this expression. It's like the canary in the mine. The canary dies because it gets poisoned from gas, and it tells the human that there's poison.
Yeah.
So it's not that the canary dying is the cause of the poison. It's
Yes.
it's
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
indicator. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
symptom,
yeah,
not
yeah,
not
yeah.
a
Yeah.
cause.
Yeah. I completely agree with you.
Can we put the lights on?
Yes, it's that way.
So, right. Some mould.
So even though there's mould in the kitchen, ironically, there's probably less mould in the kitchen than elsewhere. That's primarily because this is where the vapour is being generated, but it's
And,
probably also a
let's
warmer
just
part of
try
the
this
property.
outside.
The kitchen extractor fan both isn't plugged in because the plug's being used for something else, but also even if it were plugged in, the ducting is not extracting vapour out, so it would be useless effectively. The same goes for the bathroom. There is no bathroom extractor fan. There's one other small matter that needs to be dealt with. There seems to be water coming from the walkway above. This is actually outside the flat, but it could have an impact and should be dealt with. In summary, the primary causes of dampness and mould in this property are excess vapour from insufficient ventilation and insufficient dehumidification. Apologies for the graphics, but I try and use them to simplify the causes and solutions.